by getting you to tell our listeners a little bit about the company that you work for, Reclamation Games. Tell us a little bit about the company, how long you've been running, how it's set up, and what kind of games that you've worked on with them.
Okay. Prepare to be underwhelmed. So I started Reclamation Games a few years ago. I wanted to get more serious doing independent game development, and I was working at another job as a senior web developer. And in my free time, and I was able to get some reduced hours. So I used that time and I prototyped a game, Metroidvania, story-driven, where the main character could travel back to a recent past. And that was this prototype. And then a little ago, I quit my job and went all in on this company I started with my wife. So I'm the CEO of Reclamation Games. We've done nothing except Reina And Jericho, which we're working on right now. And demo's live on Steam if you want to check it out. And we're hoping to release it later in Q4. And that's where we're at. And our company, it's super tight. I'm the only dev, and then we have a bunch of contractors we work with to help out with little bits and pieces. So the good character art is by a guy named Leandro Franci. The 3D models are by a guy named Dan Eater. And we just are piecing together a crew.
Awesome. So I know that it's a huge decision to make because I did the same thing. I left my job working as a screenwriter for television to start up a pop culture company. So tell us a little bit about that thought behind leaving a safe job to setting up a company, because it is such a huge risk, and I'm sure you had some pretty in-depth conversations with your wife about it. Tell us a little bit about that decision.
Well, so my wife, she's composed the music for the game, and she's very talented. She quit her job years before because she wanted to run a music studio out of her house. So we renovated our basement at her old place, and we had 5 pianos down there, and she was doing all sorts of stuff. And we moved, and then she stopped doing that. So the conversation was kind of so we did a favor for you. Turn. So yeah, it's like a pattern. We're just jumping up left and right. As far as the rest of the conversation, it was pretty serious. The big thing for me is I kind of had the epiphany that I didn't have a bad job at. It was a great place to work at, but when that's not what you want from your life, and you feel yourself getting older, you can't really stay content. So I kind of thought, I'm either going to be miserable because I try and fail, or I'm going to be miserable because I never tried. I'll just take my chances with actually taking it.
Yeah. And at what time in your life did you get into gaming? Are you someone who was into gaming from a very early age, or are you someone like some of our listeners who didn't get into gaming until later on in their life?
Oh, no. For me, I've been a lifelong gamer. I remember getting a birthday present that was a check for my grandma when I was a little kid, and it was for $10, which and back in the day you could rent video games from video stores, but you could also rent consoles. And we didn't have a Nintendo, but I was I know what this is going to be used for. And it's exactly $10 to rent a console and Mario and one other game or whatever. It's that was from day one what I was about. Been a passion of mine, and people, they come into it later on in life, and some people also they play games, and they kind of stick to what's popular and kind of mainstream stuff, and it's kind of fun for them, but maybe they kind of drift away from it as they get older. But for me, I was having profound artistic experiences with video games where for anyone who played Final Fantasy 3 or 6, depending on how you count them, back in the day, the ending of the game has this 20-minute musical piece for the end battle. It's amazing, and then followed by another 20-minute piece just for the credits and everything, and going through that and seeing the credits and the word "the end," and they start playing the prelude from the series. I couldn't turn it off. I just sat there as a little kid watching the word "the end" and listening to the music, and just that changed my life.
Yeah. And the big question that we're asking all of our guests during PAX: what was the first game that you ever played, And if you could only play one game for the rest of your life, what game would that be?
Oh, man. Okay, Super Mario Bros. I'm pretty sure was my first game. Yeah, the original. Which, it was not new at that point. It was an old game, but that was the first one.
Yeah.
And then if I could only play one game, I feel like that's complicated. Can I, like, is it cheating to say, like, an MMO so you can have, like, continuous content?
No, that's actually a really smart answer. That's actually a really smart answer. So
yeah, the worst case scenario is that they drop support the day you get stranded on your desert island with one game or whatever. But I think Breath of the Wild would be another really good candidate as well.
Yeah. So, Dave, tell us a little bit about why you're at PAX this year. You've got an amazing new game coming out. Tell us a little bit about that game and how that all started for you.
Yeah, so I wanted to make a game. I wanted to make a Metroidvania, and for me, it always starts with story and narrative. So, I was thinking about things like in Metroidvania games, the genre is kind of defined by you go exploring, you see something you can't get, or somewhere you can't go, and later on you go find something that lets you get that or go there, right? So I was thinking that's a little bit like, you're revisiting this location again, and it's a little bit like, the way we revisit, regrets from our past, or you think, oh, if only I knew then what I knew now, I would do things differently. And just this constant idea of revisiting and revisiting. So I made a game where that's exactly what was going on. The main character, Reina, the plot is set off by her getting an item that lets her revisit her recent past. And that sets all sorts of trouble in motion because lots of people want it, and she gets wrapped up in a horrible situation that she has no knowledge of, and she starts having to piece it together. What happened? Who are the enemy? What's going on? Where am I? She doesn't know anything. And the game starts exploring, well, what if you could go back and change a previous choice? And the demo on at this moment where you make like the first critical choice of the game, where the path is going to split into three, top, middle, and bottom. It's like a very literal, physically literal choice. And the order you do things is going to change the game. It's going to change the order you meet people. And it's going to start putting story implications into the routing decisions you make in a Metroidvania game.
Wow, it sounds absolutely amazing. And I have to ask, because I know a lot of people out there don't know about the pre-planning for games. How much did you have to pre-plan before you actually started developing the game? Because I know that you have to work on characterization, you've got to work on what most people would refer to as a screenplay. How much of that planning did you actually have to do before you jumped in and started developing the game?
Years. So it's complicated because, of course, there was, the work I did before I was able to focus on full time. But yeah, during that time, I wrote the rough script for the game. It's had, many iterations, and even one of the things we're discovering more recently is, you write a screenplay, and I use screenplay software. The way continuity branches in the game makes, we have to take some creative licenses with how the screenplay works, because of course we just kind of pick the order and then have these other sections where, okay, if she did it in this order, it's different. But even integrating that, the medium of that page is different than the medium of the video game with text boxes appearing, and so we're constantly rewriting stuff. But the overall plan was done over the course of a couple years, and that was back when I was still working at my old job and doing prototyping and everything, and it was all proof of concept of the game. But yeah, the thing is, a lot of the time, the ideas I have are rattling around in my mind for years. One of the big inspirations for the game is, this idea of like repeatedly trying the same thing. Have you seen the movie Run Lola Run?
Yes, yep.
Yeah. So, okay, anyone who's seen it immediately is like, I know exactly what you're talking about. It's this movie where it starts with a woman running down a staircase and she has to do something very quickly. And the first time she runs down, and it sets up one continuity, and then the movie kind of rewinds. And then the second time she kind of falls down the first flight, and so she's a little bit slower. And then the third time she jumps down the first flight and is 1 second ahead, and things go crazily different. I wrote a paper on that in school. I had an elective film studies class, and I wrote a paper on it, and it turned out I misunderstood the conditions of the term paper, and it was like, no, you can't write on that movie. So I had like this really deep dive of like really exploring all these ideas of continuity and consequence and cause and effect and time, and it just sat there rattling around in my brain for like a decade. And so it bubbled out here because, again, you explore this idea of revisiting and redoing things, and what if it was 1 second sooner? Well, when you start making a Metroidvania game, these ideas, like, that's what comes out.
Yeah. And it is, yeah, so many people don't even realize that. It surprises me, but also, like, the character design, like, I'm looking at some graphics from the game right now, and even the graphic design for Reina. Tell us a little bit about how you decided how you wanted her to look, and did you do the design yourself, or did you actually go out and work with a graphic designer to create her?
Oh, I did not do it myself. So, I kind of knew the sort of aesthetics I like. I like stylized art. I like, it's got a little bit of a comic booky vibe for the portrait art. And I went out looking for people on ArtStation, because there's a lot of really good video game artists there. And a guy named Leandro Franzi did a thing for Inktober, which is an experiment or like a little practice thing a lot of artists do, where in the month of October, every day you draw something only in ink. And it's an important artistic practice because you can't erase the ink. And so it really helps you focus on your fundamentals, and people create some really cool stuff. Leandro did a thing where he did a painting or an ink sketch of all these different video game characters from all these different series for October one year. And I thought it looked amazing, and so I contacted him and was like, do you want to work on this game? And he was 100% in on it. So he did all the character portrait art. His stuff's amazing. He's a super talented artist. And then from there, I went out and found a guy named Dan Eder, who had done some really good stuff, and he had a good stylized aesthetic. And so he was taking Leandro's portraits and making character models out of it. And it's like this really cool, like, it's kind of got like a Street Fighter vibe to it, like the newer ones, where a little bit of a stylist, a little bit of an Overwatch vibe. It's really cool. But yeah, I had to find people to work with, and that's kind of how we do things. Like, we have a really small crew. I'm the only dev at the company, and then we're looking out for people who have the skills to try filling all these cracks, because I at least had a background in coding, and I've been games for years and stuff, but artistically, I can't illustrate nearly at the level that a guy like Leandro can, and my 3D modeling is nowhere near Dan's. So
awesome. Well, mate, I know you are very, very busy at the moment because you're right in the middle of PAX, so I won't keep you much longer, but I'd love to end with the question. The game is coming out very, very soon. How do you feel now that the game is about to be released out there to people, and people will be trialing it during PAX? How do you feel? Are you nervous or excited?
Oh, both. You put those together, shake them, and you get some form of awful out the other side. Yeah, nervous. I mean, you're putting yourself out there. The internet is not shy about its opinion, nor too concerned about the feelings of others. So, it's like anything where you miss the mark, they're going to let you know. So that's always like a concern. You're just like, oh my goodness. Like, there's a bug in the demo right now, and I feel really bad about it, and I want to get to fixing it. But I mean, you also have to kind of be at peace with that. But that's the emotional roller coaster, right? Yeah, super nervous. The game's coming out in Q4, so yeah, we're trying to rush and get things done. And yeah, it's crazy. It's stressful. It feels like Monday was a lifetime ago. What it's like.
Yeah, well, mate, we'll let you get back to fixing that dreadful little bug that's there at the moment that's bugging you. We'll let you get back to fixing that, but thank you so much for chatting to us. I know a lot of our listeners are going to be very, very excited about Reina and Jericho coming out, so thank you so much for taking the time during PAX to come on and talk to us.
Yeah, can I drop one more thing?
Yeah, definitely. Go for it.
Okay, yeah, it's coming out Q4 of this year on Steam, itch.io, and those are going to be Windows PC, and then coming out on Nintendo Switch, PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and then later on we're going to patch in a randomizer for people who know what that it's all about. We're going to patch that in, and we're going to hit some more consoles and hopefully get some more localization going on as well. So that's just what to keep an eye out for.
Awesome. Well, Dave, thank you so much for taking the time for coming on our show. It's been absolutely awesome to chat to you, and hopefully our listeners get out there and support you, not only during PAX, but in the future as well.
Yeah, support indie devs.